Okay, so one of the specific questions I had was the gender inclusive pronouns.
Mm.
And I think I asked this question to a lot of the people I look up to at church because I myself has encountered a situation like this before. So a little story time.
Story
Yeah,
time
bring
with
it.
Chuck.
Story time. Yes, I was at work and I had a coworker who went by the pronouns of they/them. Um, and biologically she was a woman. Um, and yeah, I think it was for us it was a struggle to remember that that she went by those pronouns. And like in casual conversations, um, it's like you forget, right? And it's hard to remember those pronouns, but um I told her that I'd try my best to call you by your name,
Mm-hmm.
to be respectful still. um the thing is the boss was the one that got offended for that person, um and I got into some trouble. um there's like no grace shown after the first time. The second time that happened, it was like boom, straight to HR.
Oh man.
And yeah, I felt like dang, was I too like harsh, or man, should I have remembered? Was I not loving enough to remember that in a casual conversation? Um, for me, like my question is like, how do we approach? Is there really something we can do from that that stand like perspective, from my perspective, when we were attacked as Christians for using the wrong pronoun, but we still care about our coworker. You know, they're still our friend.
Mm-hmm.
Is there like a line for misgendering or using different pronouns?
Well, I mean, we are still imperfect, so even though we do try to remember, we probably won't remember.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably the point. I mean, I don't think it comes off as like unloving. I mean, it's kind of the same thing of like a parent forgetting the child's name, like their
But
child's
see, that's the
name.
thing though.
But
So
like,
true.
It might not
yeah,
appear unloving to us,
Right.
yeah,
but to them, it was quick. It was straight to HR.
Yeah.
So, see, now this is the reasoning part where I'm like, okay, how do I still be loving to them? Because from my standpoint, from a Christian standpoint, that might be like, oh, he just forgot.
Mm-hmm.
To them, it was like, no, he did it on purpose, and
Yeah.
they know that I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
So they were out for me already,
Yeah.
and they were like, okay, we can get this guy.
Mm.
We can get this guy out. One more time he slips, we'll get him. But that wasn't my intention, of course.
Yeah.
Like I still love, even the higher up. I still love that person as a friend. Um, so yeah, this is something I've been wrestling with even now, um, in different workplaces. It's just, it's kind of like you get scarred
Yeah.
after the
Yeah.
first situation.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's kind of like what we were saying about like what you said, PT. We're not trying to have an argument, right? But sometimes from the other side, like, are they just trying to have an argument? Like, are they just
Right.
they're trying to get you,
Yeah.
right? Are they, right? But even if they're not, it's like, yeah, like we said, it does offend them a lot,
Mhm.
right? It might not seem as a big a deal to us, but like, yeah, I think for us, like, how do we be loving, right? I think just trying to look at things from their perspective, but at the same time, like, stand your ground, right? As a Christian, defend your faith and your beliefs, right? And it's really it's hard, right? But it's just remembering to love, right? That's the reason why you even care to talk to them about this stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's, yes, you're defending your faith, but it's not even just that, because I mean, if you're denying yourself and you're taking your cross every day to follow Christ, you're ready, right? You're ready for anything. And it's, are you are you being loving, right? Are you approaching them not just as a Christian, but as a sinner, right? I think it's just, I mean, I feel like I kind of tie it in just evangelism in general, right? Like, and that's not just a like an LGBTQ thing, right? But
Mhm.
us as sinners, we're telling other beggars where to get bread, right? It's just looking at it from that perspective, like you have this gospel, you have this word of life, right? And it's out of love that you're sharing it to them, right? And I think I know it's hard, especially when the other side is defensive. Like I said, I've never been in these situations, but I have heard from, yeah, friends and family who have encountered like these heated arguments, right? Um, it's hard to be loving when they're so defensive, and I think also kind of attacking at the same time, right? It's
Yeah.
like why are you attacking me for my beliefs, right? Like, I get to have my own opinion, but then it's like, okay, well then us as Christians, we have our beliefs as well, right? So how do you reach that point of just having like a, yeah, like a level-minded argument, not argument, level-minded just conversation.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think my fear, okay, I'm not going to speak for all Christians, but I think my fear is not the being attacked part.
Mhm.
Like, I can deal with that. I think my fear is I don't want to be the Christian that makes the statement Christians hate gay people true.
Mm.
I don't want to be that Christian because I
Mm.
know people who claim to be Christian are very hatred towards that group.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to be a part of that group because that's not what Christians are called to be.
Right.
That's just my fear. And sometimes, like the last situation, it seemed like that to
Mhm.
them, at least.
Mhm.
And how do we avoid that situation
Mm-hmm.
to happen again?
Yeah, I empathize with that too, because yeah, there are these like big extremes, right? Where there's some churches that literally have picket signs and
Yeah.
they're literally like, "You're going to hell." Like, that's not.
That's insane.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's not what the Bible's telling you to do, you know. But there's also Christian groups that also just have the pride flag like on their church, and like I can't agree with that either
right.
because we can't support sin, you know. And there's these two extremes, and yeah, it's about drawing this line, like where as Christians do we just stand and hold, right? Like let's take like Chester's example where um he said you're trying to say her name,
Yeah.
right? Instead of like, but what if they like specifically want to be called they them?
Mm.
Like I know personally, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could acknowledge
Mm.
that there is, I guess, like a third gender, if that's how, yeah, it all gets confusing. But terminology, yeah. But yeah, like because I believe that God created two genders, and I believe that yeah, this is the way it is, and this is factually what it is, and that's where I would draw that line. But I know there are Christians who aren't on either extremes either that would say, you should call them they them because that's the loving thing to do. That's what they prefer. You don't have to agree with it, but that's how you should speak to them. And I just don't know how to reason with where this line is supposed to be drawn because yeah, as Christians we are supposed to draw a line and we are supposed to defend the word and yeah, just be ready for anything. And yeah.
Yeah, I personally have never really ran into that situation in terms of using pronouns. I think most of the time, at least the people that I work with, they're pretty okay, I guess. I mean, I never had a coworker who is part of the community, or even then, because I work at a PT office, so yeah, we honestly don't really get a lot of, I guess, people in that community, to be honest with you. If there is someone like that, I just make if I don't want to assume or anything, but if I suspect something, then I would just call them by their name.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think twice of trying to use their pronouns unless they really like want to say their pronouns and be like, okay, that's cool. Like
Yeah.
like I'll just do my best to make sure that I don't offend you in any way. But either way, like if I just call them by their name, they'll just be like, oh yeah, I'm here. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll do this, I'll do that. But yeah, I guess in that case, I've never actually experienced anything like that before. Um, but um, but yeah, I think I have the same sentiment as like Peter and Chuck, right? I think yeah, I honestly don't really know myself on what I would do.
Right.
My obviously like me spiritually and me knowing God's word, I would probably not use the pronouns. But I would probably just call them by their name
Yeah.
and just leave it at that. Like don't go any further, you know.
Right, right.
Yeah, I just relate to them in that way, I guess. I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah.
No, that's pretty smart. I mean, yeah, you guys are bringing up really good points because this is very practical. I mean, I think you can go to your neighborhood coffee shop or a restaurant where this might just become, you know, a deal with the server or even the cashier, or,
Yeah.
you know, where, you know, what you see, you might have missed that detail on their preferences and you could offend people. I think the way that Chester kind of shared his heart, I appreciate it because you know you can kind of see the goal. You know, wasn't just to prove a point, as if oh well, you know, clearly you're a biological male. You want to be, you know, what, I'm gonna make sure you know are confronted with the fact that you're wrong. No, that's probably not helpful, especially if you're thinking about if they're not a Christian and you're trying to evangelize. I mean, is this really the point you're gonna stand on first? Like that's the first impression? Probably not. Um, so the heart needs to be right. Like you can't be using this to pick a fight. Even with like, let's say a Christian that maybe has a wrong view on this. I mean, is that really kind of the place you'll take a stand? But then you also have to be right in your conscience before God. I mean, that's where you need to obey. And so what you said about maybe using their first name, that makes a lot of sense. And that's actually not too weird. Because if you think about it, certain names, like even like a Taylor Swift, you know, you go back a few years, only dudes named Taylor, right? Girls aren't named Taylor. So yeah, like Lindsay, you know, like a lot of these names, they were
Oh,
male
yeah.
names
That's
first,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then now they're almost like once a girl takes a name, it's over. It's that's not a you know a, whatever moral judgment. It's just how it is. So it becomes very you know a girl name. That's fine. But then, yeah, using a first name might be a good way for you to be clear in your conscience or not. But then I feel like if it is for the sake of just being able to build a bridge, if in your conscience it allows to where, you know, you want to, in a way, show that you care about them and are willing to use their pronouns, but that begins with you. In other words, that's not white. I don't know that that's wrong to do either. But I just think that it needs to be very clear your intention in building a relationship, and it's not to pick a fight on that, and then to honor God, you know, with how you say it. But I feel like that is an everyday thing that's going to happen more and more. I mean, you can't look on any kind of media and have that not be a category where you find out a lot about that person. But even then, you realize that that's not the battle to win. If the goal is to make disciples, that's not the battle to win. So how do you have a clear conscience that honors God, but then how do you then, you know, exercise wisdom in engaging people? That's for each of us to really have some clarity on.